Discover the incredible, life-changing secrets that will touch your heart before you give up. Sarah's heart raced as she wiped down the last table at the diner. The smell of greasy burgers and burnt coffee clung to her clothes like a badge of honor. She darted around the restaurant, her feet aching, but all her thoughts were with Jake. She could picture him now, his determined gaze on a college brochure, dreaming of a life beyond their small Midwest town, a life filled with possibilities, unlike the crumbling shops and abandoned houses that lined the streets of Maplewood. Every struggle she faced felt worth it if it meant giving him that chance. After her shift, she changed clothes and headed out to clean office buildings, hoping the late-night quiet would let her catch her breath. As she scrubbed toilet stalls and dusted desks, a wave of judgment from the neighboring houses washed over her. They peered from behind their curtains, judging her in a way that stung deep. The new family next door flaunted their wealth, their perfect lawn and shiny cars mocking her reality. She felt envy tangle with an ache for acceptance. Then, on one of those long, exhausting nights, she stumbled upon her mother's dusty journal while cleaning out the attic. Eager fingers flipped through the pages, revealing stories of resilience, courage, and heart. Words jumped at her with the promise of hope. "Whatever life gives you, face it with a full heart," her mother had written. That flicker of hope sparked brighter than before. Just as things seemed to stabilize, the announcement of a local scholarship competition shook her world again. Jake needed this opportunity. Sarah felt desperation in her bones. She sought a mentor for him, believing it to be the key to unlock his future. But when she tried to connect with the well-off parents of his classmates, her heart sank. Her challenge became a moment of public humiliation, leaving her exposed and vulnerable as whispers echoed around her. Jake's spirit dimmed, doubt crept in, whispering that maybe his dreams were too big. As the days washed over her like waves of concern, Sarah realized that they couldn't do this alone. The weight of their struggles pushed them deeper into isolation. But the truth was, Maplewood was filled with neighbors just like her, good people facing their battles in silence. With a renewed sense of purpose, she decided to rally them together. "Our strength lies in unity," she declared at the community center, her voice shaking but passionate. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as hopes rekindled, the wealthy family next door began sharing their own struggles. Their story revealed layers of complexity that blurred the lines between rich and poor in ways Sarah had never expected. The revelation of hidden pain unveiled a surprising unity. Maybe, just maybe, they weren't so different after all. With scholarship day looming, the pressure mounted. Tension sizzled with questions of meritocracy. Would all their hard work be enough? Would Jake rise to the occasion? As Sarah grappled with her pride and vulnerability, she realized the community's pull was a lifeline they might need after all. In that moment of urgency and newfound connection, the potential for transformation lingered. Would they discover the strength to overcome together, or would doubt claim them once and for all? The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over Maplewood, and Sarah could already feel the weight of the day ahead. She sat on her porch, cradling a cup of coffee, watching the streets slowly come to life. Today was scholarship day, and the nerves bubbled within her like boiling water. What if they lost? She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Jake had hardly slept the night before. He muttered something about feeling sick with worry, but Sarah knew it was the fear of failure that wrapped around him like a vice. She wondered if he stayed up working on his application, revising his essay until the fading light of his desk lamp surrendered to shadows. But she also knew he was determined, fierce in his dreams, much like his mother. As the hour approached, they gathered in the community center. Chairs filled quickly with neighbors, each wearing expressions of hesitation mixed with hope. A mix of laughter and anxious chatter filled the room, but it all felt like white noise to Sarah. Her heart beat erratically, the rhythm matching the pulse of uncertainty running through her. When Jake walked in, he looked different, a bit more confident, maybe, than he had the day before. He caught her eye and smiled, a small, brave gesture that made Sarah's heart swell. She wanted to reach out and grab his hand, to assure him they were in this together, but words escaped her. Instead, she nodded, silently telling him to hold on to his courage. "Let us not think of this just as a competition," Sarah said, raising her voice to call everyone's attention. "Think of it as an opportunity to share our stories." Her words sliced through the chatter, soaking into the hearts around her. "We may have our struggles, but together, we are stronger." As the announcer stepped up to the podium, a hush fell over the crowd. The tension thickened, palpable and electric. Jake sat forward, anticipation etched around his eyes, living every second with fervor. Sarah felt everyone's collective breath held in unison, the weight of dreams hanging in the air. "And the scholarship goes to," the announcer paused for dramatic effect, scanning the eager faces before landing on Jake. "Jake Matthews." A cheer erupted in the hall, voices mingling in joyous chaos. Sarah felt her chest tighten, tears of joy brimmed in her eyes. He did it. She couldn't help herself, she jumped up, hurrying to embrace him while the world around them celebrated. As Jake stood there, shocked, the reality of his accomplishment began to settle in. The proud smile that broke over his face was one she'd never forget. It was a beacon of hope, a glimmer of the future they had strived for, but in that moment of euphoria, as the crowd came forward to congratulate them, Sarah noticed a familiar face lingering at the back. Mrs. Price, the wealthy neighbor, her expression unreadable. Suddenly, the vulnerability of Sarah's earlier struggles rushed back, as shadows flickered in Mrs. Price's eyes. What was she thinking? Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that a conversation was imminent, one that could shift her community's newfound unity. Could it be that the revelation of truths between them would still lie ahead? As the applause faded and the moment began to settle, Sarah felt a stirring anxiety. There was more to come than meets the eye. What kind of truths would emerge from the depths of their shared challenges? Perhaps the answer would reshape everything they believed about their lives and futures in Maplewood. The applause eventually quieted, although echoes of laughter still spun around the room like confetti. Jake continued to bask in the moment, surrounded by friends and family eager to congratulate him. But Sarah's eyes remained fixed on Mrs. Price, whose tight smile seemed to peel back layers of something deeper, a hidden concern, or maybe something more sinister. Just as Sarah thought, maybe it was nothing, Mrs. Price began to weave through the crowd, her manicured hands clasped in front of her like she was about to deliver unwelcome news. Each step seemed heavier, as though gravity itself wished to delay her approach. Sarah's heart raced. Was this the conversation she anticipated? "Jake!" Mrs. Price called, her voice silky but stern. "May I have a moment with you?" "No, wait." Jake looked over at Sarah, uncertainty creasing his brow. She took a small step forward, sensing the shift in energy around them. "Please, just a quick word," Mrs. Price insisted, her eyes darting between Jake and Sarah. "I promise I won't take long." Without waiting for a response, she gestured for Jake to follow her a few feet away. The crowd's chatter faded into a murmur as they all turned to watch, curiosity evident in every face. "Should I go?" Jake whispered, his eyes flicking back to Sarah. "Just hear her out," Sarah replied, her voice steady even as her insides twisted with uncertainty. Jake nodded reluctantly and stepped closer to Mrs. Price, who leaned in as if to share a secret. Sarah observed, her heart thumping not just from worry, but because she could feel the charged atmosphere ripple through the room. As Mrs. Price began to speak, Sarah tried to decipher the expressions of those around her. Muffled whispers floated through the air, mixed with occasional gasps. Was Mrs. Price sharing some startling news? The lightness of the moment abruptly shifted, and the weight of fear settled on Sarah's shoulders. Moments later, Jake's brows knit together tightly. He glanced back at Sarah, confusion painted on his face. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice raised just enough to reach her ears. this wasn't just a friendly chat anymore, it felt like a reckoning. Sarah felt as if a wall was closing in around them, cutting them off from the celebrations. Not one to cower from confrontation, she stepped closer, determined to hear every word. Sometimes these scholarships come with strings attached, Mrs. Price said, her tone shifting from cordial to condescending. You might want to be aware of who might help you and who might be willing to pull you back down. Sarah's stomach flipped. What did that mean? Was Mrs. Price hinting at something unscrupulous? Piece by piece, the collective joy started to fall away, replaced by a heavy tension. Jake took a step back, his face in open book confusion, disbelief, then anger. Are you threatening me? His voice shook with indignation, echoing back to Sarah like an alarm. No, of course not. Mrs. Price replied too smoothly, as if her feigned concern was rehearsed. But in our town, power dynamics are complex. There are those who support, and those who want to control. It's critical you understand that. Sarah could see the doubt creeping in like weeds in a garden. Jake was nearly bubbling over, his fists clenching at his sides. Just stop. Sarah intervened, anger inching its way into her voice. What do you really want from him? Mrs. Price smiled, a poised mask that didn't quite reach her eyes. I only want him to make informed choices. The words lingered in the air, bitter and stinging. Jake turned to Sarah, and in that moment, there was clarity. What does she know that we don't? He whispered. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a storm inside her. The shadows of uncertainty began to wrap both Jake and her in a palpable sense of dread, and what if the truths hidden beneath their small-town exterior were far more complicated than they ever imagined? As the crowd continued to murmur, the emotional stakes surged. Would they choose to confront the truth together? Or would they allow the uncertainty to break the fragile resolve they just built? A choice loomed ahead, and Sarah could feel the weight of it pressing down around them. What would they discover about themselves and their community in the days to come? The tension hung in the air like a thick fog, wrapping around Sarah and Jake, engulfing them in uncertainty. Every set of eyes in the room watched with a mix of curiosity and dread, the earlier celebration now a distant echo. Jake, Mrs. Price persisted, her voice dripping with false warmth, I wouldn't bring this up if it weren't important. She lowered her voice, drawing closer, her intention clear. She wanted to isolate him from the crowd. Whatever this is, can it wait? Jake shot back, his anger just beneath the surface. I'm not in the mood for your games right now. Sarah's heart pounded. She knew Jake well enough to understand that the emotion boiling inside him could boil over into something ugly. Let's just calm down, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, wanting to diffuse the situation while also forcing herself to stay strong. Mrs. Price's face morphed into a mock frown. I assure you, this isn't personal. I'm looking out for your future. Some people in this town, they take advantage of naive dreams. Jake's eyes narrowed. You don't even know me. His voice rose again, and she felt the tension escalate further in the crowd. The whispers grew louder, and scattered glances confirmed that they were the center of attention, drawing spectators into their unfolding drama. Stop it. Sarah said firmly, taking a step between them. You're scaring him. If you have something to say, just say it. Mrs. Price appeared taken aback momentarily, perhaps by Sarah's strength or her unexpected defense of Jake. I want him to succeed, but there are limits to what he can do on his own. He needs the right guidance. Guidance, or control? Jake challenged, and Sarah admired the fire in his voice. Every word was laced with indignation, shaking off the dust of doubt Mrs. Price was trying to lay over them. Mrs. Price smiled again, but it looked strained, as if she were fighting off a losing battle. Isn't it better to be prepared? There are people who would rather cut him down instead of lift him up. Like you. Jake shot back, crossing his arms. The crowd had settled into a quiet anticipation, eager to see where this confrontation would lead. Enough. Sarah said, her heart racing. Just say what you mean. If you think you're protecting him, then tell him who these people are. A heavy pause followed, the air thickening as Mrs. Price hesitated. The weight of the moment seemed to press down on everyone in attendance. Finally, she glanced around the room, then lowered her voice. There are options, Jake. People who have sway over awards and scholarships. If you're not careful, you might find yourself tangled in something you can't break free from. What are you implying? Jake asked, his voice steady but filled with disbelief. He looked back at Sarah, seeking her support. I'm saying dreams have shadows. Your success might bring out the worst in some. The words hit Sarah like a slap. She felt herself start to spiral what shadows concealed their dreams. Her mind raced through their journey, every step taken toward a bright future now shrouded in doubt. We'll figure it out, Jake said, shaking his head defiantly. I'm not going to let fear dictate my choices. The crowd's murmurs amplified, churning with speculation and anxiety. Sarah felt an invisible line draw between them and those who observed. We'll need to prepare, she said slowly, glancing at the faces watching them. We owe it to ourselves to understand what we're up against. Mrs. Price's nod was curt, but the expression on her face suggested that the warning was anything but over. She stepped back, blending into the crowd, but not before Sarah caught a glimmer of a smirk on her lips that made her stomach turn. What are we getting into, really? Jake whispered, a deep frown setting in. Sarah took a breath, one that felt too heavy. We're going to need to dig deeper, figure out what's really at stake. But it's not just about us anymore. Jake's gaze grew serious, the tension shifting from outward anger to an inward determination. I won't let anyone keep me from what I deserve. We'll expose these shadows. But even as they rallied their resolve, a creeping fear gnawed at Sarah. What ugly surprises awaited them in the daylight? And could they withstand whatever forces lurked beneath the surface of their small town? As the event carried on, the facade of celebration began to crack wider, leaving Sarah and Jake clinging tightly to each other, ready to step into the unknown. Could they truly unveil the secrets holding their dreams hostage, and at what cost? The moment the crowd began to disperse, an uneasy silence settled around Jake and Sarah. They lingered, still processing Mrs. Price's ominous warning. Acquaintances passed by, giving sidelong glances as they whispered and pointed, but all they could focus on was the knot of uncertainty and fear that had formed in Sarah's stomach. What does she mean by tangled in something you can't break free from? Jake's voice was low, almost strained, as he turned to face Sarah. There was a raw vulnerability in his expression that tugged at her heart. I don't know, Sarah murmured, feeling the weight of the moment pressing against her chest. But we need to find out. We can't just ignore this. Jake nodded slowly, his determination returning. We just got to keep moving forward. If we know what we're up against, we can fight it, right? Right, Sarah agreed, wishing she felt as confident. She took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against her own. But we have to be smart about it. As they walked through the remnants of the gathering, other students now huddled in small groups, some laughing, some lost in their own private conversations. Every laugh felt like an echo of their earlier joy, tainted by the shadows Mrs. Price had introduced. Let's talk to Hannah, Jake suggested, talking about their mutual friend who had always been clued into the town's intricacies. She's been around long enough to know the ropes. Good idea, Sarah replied, relieved to have a plan. That a rush of adrenaline coursed through her as they made their way toward the cafe at the edge of the community park. It boasted oversized umbrellas and a sprawling patio where students often gathered to share gossip and snacks. The tables were largely empty now, but a few familiar faces remained. Hannah. Jake called out as they spotted her sitting alone, her notebook sprawled across the table, a pencil twirling between her fingers. She looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to a welcoming smile. Hey! What's the rush? Hannah gestured for them to join her. As they settled into the wicker chairs, Sarah glanced around, ensuring no one was listening. You won't believe what just happened, she said, urgency coating her words. After recounting the encounter with Mrs. Price, the color drained from Hannah's face. Wow. That's intense. I know, right? Do you have any idea who she was talking about? Who might be trying to undermine Jake? Sarah leaned in closer, the taste of fear sharp on her tongue. Hannah shifted in her chair, her brow furrowing. Well, in this town, there are always whispers. But you have to be cautious about believing every rumor. Just tell us. Jake interrupted, frustration bubbling again. We need to know. Okay. Hannah held up her hands, backing down from his intensity. I've heard some names tossed around, people who have powerful connections. You know, the ones who control scholarships, sponsorships for the arts, and even the sports teams. If they don't think you're a good fit, they can make it nearly impossible to succeed. Do you have names? Sarah pressed. There was a growing sense of urgency within her, a need to protect Jake's dreams. Maybe, Hannah sighed, looking conflicted. But if I tell you, it could make you targets too. Better targets than sitting ducks, Jake said with defiance. Okay, just promise me you'll be careful, she replied, and began listing off names, some familiar, others mysterious. Each name felt like a brick being laid onto a path of intimidation. The weight of their conversation felt dense, wrapping around them tightly. Sarah's heart raced, knowing they were now standing at the precipice of something dangerous but necessary. As they left the cafe, dusk painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, illuminating the newfound clarity of their mission but also casting long shadows behind them. What do we do with this information? Sarah asked, glancing at Jake. Jake squeezed her hand, determination fueling his eyes. We need to gather more intel. We need to shine a light on these shadows before they consume us. But as they headed home, a chilling thought crept into Sarah's mind. Could the quest for truth push them into the very darkness they were trying to evade? Would they emerge stronger, or would they find the shadows swallowing them whole? The next day dawned crisp and clear, but a chill settled in Sarah's bones. As she walked to school with Jake, her mind replayed their conversation from the night before. Clarity felt elusive, uncertainty expanded like a balloon ready to burst. They arrived at the high school, where students buzzed with life, laughter bouncing off the walls, but for Sarah, the vibrant energy felt wrong. It seemed as if laughter had suddenly morphed into mocking whispers, and she couldn't shake the feeling of being ensnared in a web. We should stick together, Jake said, pulling her back to reality. Let us start digging into this list Hannah gave us. Right, Sarah said, forcing a smile. She appreciated Jake's determination, but anxiety gnawed at her. But where do we even start? Maybe we can look for connections, he suggested, eyes burning with focus. If these people are in the loop, they might know more. We'll talk to whoever we can. As they entered the school, Sarah scanned the hallways, desperate to seem normal in front of their peers. She caught sight of Daryl, the captain of the basketball team, chatting animatedly with his friends. Was he on Hannah's list? She felt a twist of worry. They needed all the help they could get. Let us go talk to him. Jake led the way, confidence radiating from him. She followed cautiously, heart pounding like a drum. Hey, Daryl. Jake called out, waving. The tall athlete turned, eyebrows raised. What's up? He replied, all smiles. Sarah shot Jake a look, but he kept the momentum going. Got a second? We need to run something by you. It's about that scholarship situation. Daryl's demeanor shifted slightly. Scholarship? He echoed, glancing at his buddies who quickly lost interest. What do you mean? Jake stepped closer, keeping his voice low. We're trying to figure out who's influencing the decisions around here. We heard some names tossed around. What names? Daryl narrowed his eyes, the playful demeanor gone. Let's just say some folks might not want everyone to succeed, Sarah interjected. We need to know if you've heard anything that could help Jake. For a moment, Daryl hesitated. The corner of his mouth twitched, like he was weighing his options. You guys have to be careful. This isn't just some high school drama, you could end up in hot water. Tell us what you know. Jake urged, pushing the words out with intensity. Well, Daryl glanced around, lowering his voice. I can't say much. But there's this group who meets after school. They're the ones who have the real power. If you want to get in with them, you should talk to Mia. Everyone listens to her. Mia? Sarah questioned, a knot clenching her stomach. She'd heard whispers about Mia being a social gatekeeper, someone who held connections among the elite of the school. Yeah, she's tight with some of the teachers and all. Daryl shrugged, a hint of concern flashing across his face. Just be careful. She can be ruthless. Ruthless? The word echoed in Sarah's mind. Just like Mrs. Price had warned. Thanks, Daryl. We appreciate it, Jake said, clarity flooding his voice. They turned to leave, but Sarah lingered back. Are you sure we want to do this? Sarah asked, worry churning in her gut. What if we're crossing a line we can't return from? Jake glanced back at her, a fierce light in his eyes. We need to know how deep this goes. If we're going to change things, we have to face it head on. As they walked away, Sarah felt the weight of his words settle between them. They were dancing on the edge, and one misstep could send them into a darkness they were unprepared for. Mia better have answers, Jake said, determination lacing his tone. And as they made their way toward their fate, Sarah couldn't escape the feeling that they were preparing to step into a realm where the stakes were higher than they ever realized. Would they uncover the truth they sought, or would it pull them under? They pushed through the school doors, the afternoon sunlight flooding the halls with a golden light. It felt almost surreal, the world outside bustling with carefree laughter while the two of them were about to plunge into an uncertain darkness. Sarah stole a glance at Jake. He seemed invincible, fueled by purpose, but inside, doubt clawed at her. Okay, so. Mia, she said, her voice quiet as they approached their favorite corner of the school. What do we know about her? Nothing that helps us yet. Jake's brows knitted in determination. But Daryl said she's influential. If we can get her on our side, it opens doors. I just hope it doesn't backfire. Sarah's stomach twisted. What if she sees us as a threat? Jake shrugged. That's a risk we have to take. If we want to change things, we can't tiptoe. We need to confront our fears and push through. Right. Sarah faced the lockers, noting the faded graffiti swirling over them. With every breath, her nerves threatened to overwhelm her. Let us find her, then. They wandered through the bustling corridors, noting the vibrant groups of students in animated conversations. And there she was. Mia stood by the windows, surrounded by a throng of admirers, laughter spilling out like confetti. She was the epitome of confidence, her hair cascading perfectly over her shoulders, her smile both captivating and intimidating. Just look at her, Jake muttered, barely masked awe in his voice. She could make or break us. But can we even approach her? Sarah felt her heart race as they drew closer. What if she blows us off? Then we move on, Jake replied, but Sarah could see the worry etched into his expression. Taking a deep breath, they finally stepped up to Mia, who was sharing a laugh with her friends. The warmth of the sun contrasted sharply with the icy grip of fear that held Sarah. Jake cleared his throat. Hey, Mia. Got a second? He said, trying to sound casual. Mia turned, tilting her head like a curious cat. Her friends quieted, sensing the sudden shift in energy. What do you need? She asked, a half-smile playing on her lips. We heard you know a lot about the scholarship situation at school, Jake started, his tone steady. We're trying to figure out what's really going on. Mia's brow furrowed, and the atmosphere crackled with tension. And why exactly do you want to dig into that? We think there's something more happening behind the scenes, Sarah added, surprising herself with the strength of her voice. We need to know if our friends are safe. Mia studied them carefully. The room felt like a stage, all eyes trained on this encounter. You really want to know? She finally said, crossing her arms. It's not as simple as you think. What do you mean? Jake pressed, eyes glinting with urgency. Let's just say everyone has their secrets, and those secrets may not want to be uncovered. Her voice danced on the edge of warning and intrigue. Sarah's heart pounded. Could this be the moment everything shifted for them? Could dealing with Mia unveil a path to the answers they sought? Mia, please, she said, vulnerability flooding her voice. We're in this together. If you know something, anything, it could really help us. Mia regarded her intently, a flicker of something softening her sharp edges. All right. Meet me after school. But if you want answers, you must be prepared to face the consequences. Breathless, Sarah and Jake exchanged glances filled with a mix of fear and hope. They had reached the threshold of the truth, but at what cost? As they stepped back to give Mia space, the sensation of inevitability washed over them. What kind of truth awaited them in that meeting? And were they truly ready for whatever it might reveal? The afternoon dragged on, each class a slow crawl toward the final bell. Sarah sat in chemistry, her mind racing though all the experiments and equations floated around her like nonsensical fluff. She stole quick glances at the clock, counting the seconds as they ticked painfully by. Jake whispered an occasional quip meant to cheer her up, but she could barely focus. All she could think about was what Mia might reveal. As the final bell rang, relief washed over Sarah nearly as quickly as anxiety hit her. Jake shot up from his seat, his enthusiasm infectious, and together they pushed through the throng of students streaming into the hallway. The energy in the air felt charged, buzzing with the anticipation of plans for the evening parties, games, hangouts. But not for them. They had a different mission. Are you ready? Jake asked, his smile faltering just a bit. There was apprehension lurking behind those bright eyes. Sarah nodded, although her stomach twisted in knots. They navigated through the flowing crowd, heading toward the empty spot by the bleachers where they agreed to meet Mia. The sun was starting to set, casting a warm hue on everything. The golden light painted everything around them, creating an illusion of hope, yet all Sarah felt was dread. When they arrived, Mia leaned casually against a bleacher, her expression unreadable. The glimmer of the setting sun caught her face just right, and for a moment, Sarah wondered if this powerful girl really could help them. Thanks for coming, Mia said, her tone more serious than before. Before we start, I need to know you're both committed to this. Once you step in, there's no turning back. Yeah, we're all in. Just tell us what you know, Jake said, a confidence returning to his voice. Mia shifted her weight, her gaze piercing through them. There's a network, you understand. A lot of people are involved in this scholarship thing. Some students, some teachers, even parents. The rumors about favoritism. Are they true? Sarah asked, her heart racing as she leaned closer. Mia blew out a breath as if weighing something heavy. Yes and no. Some students think they're playing fair, but there are lots of hidden agendas. They use personal connections, and you're going to want to know that it can get dirty. What do you mean? Jake pressed, brows furrowing in concern. People can be ruthless. If you threaten to expose what I show you, you could make enemies. People want to take your side. Her voice was low, almost conspiratorial. Sarah felt cold fear creep into her veins. But what about our friends? If they're in danger, we can't. Sometimes, you have to decide how much you're willing to sacrifice for the truth, Mia interrupted, intensity sharpening her voice. You might lose friends along the way or be branded as outcasts yourself. The two of them exchanged a wary glance. What choice did they really have? Mia, we can't just stand back and let this happen. We have to do something, Sarah stated, emboldened by a mix of fear and determination. with a sudden move, Mia pulled out her phone and opened a series of messages. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You want to dig deeper, you need to know what you're up against. As the screen illuminated more information, Sarah's heart raced with a mixture of excitement and dread. What were they walking into? They stepped closer, drawn into the web of secrets unfolding before them. Every revelation unlocked a new strand of tension, the stakes climbing higher. In that moment, Sarah understood. They were reaching for something that could change everything, but at what cost? Are we really ready for this? Sarah whispered, her stomach knotting with uncertainty. The weight of their decision pressed heavily, rumbled with the sound of laughter and excitement rushing in from the outside world. And just as Mia began to divulge more details, a shadow fell over them. A figure loomed behind, piercing the fragile bubble they had formed. Hope you know what you're getting into, a voice sneered. All three turned, and Sarah felt a chill course through her. What had they just stepped into? Who was waiting in the dark, ready to strike if they dared to expose the truth? Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the voice. It belonged to Kyle, the school's notorious jock, a guy known for playing both sides with effortless charm. He stood there, arms crossed, a mocking grin plastered across his face. What do you want, Kyle? Mia asked, her voice steady, but a flicker of annoyance crossed her features. Oh, I just thought I'd check in on the brave little rebels, he replied. The air around them felt thick with tension, and Sarah could sense the uncertainty swirling. Jake's hand lightly gripped her shoulder, an unspoken promise of support. Back off, Kyle, Jake said, stepping forward, his own bravado shining through, though Sarah could see the anxiousness behind his eyes. Kyle laughed, the sound harsh like gravel. You really think you can take on the system? You think you're special? All it takes is one little misstep, and you'll be tossed aside like yesterday's news. Why does it matter to you? Mia interjected, her voice rising slightly. Why do you care if we do this? Kyle's expression changed, just for a moment, revealing something deeper, maybe even vulnerable. Because you're putting your necks on the line for something that's bigger than you can handle. Trust me, there are things you don't understand. He leaned in closer. There's a reason why the rest of us stay in our lanes, and you won't like what you find if you dig too deep. Is that a threat? Jake asked, his tone sharp. Kyle shrugged, his nonchalance feeling more calculated than casual. I'm just giving you advice. You can save yourselves a lot of trouble if you back off now. Sarah felt anger bubbling inside her, mixing with the fear that had settled like a weight in her chest. You think you can intimidate us? We're not afraid of you or anyone else. The bravado in her own voice surprised Sarah. There was something about this moment, the realization of their resolve, that electrified the air between them. Kyle stared at her, eyes narrowing, weighing her words. Think twice before you decide to be heroes, he warned, stepping back, but not before making sure they all knew who really ran the school. This isn't a game. People lose everything when they play with fire. He turned and walked away, leaving the three of them standing frozen, the shadows of doubt flickering in their minds. What just happened? Jake asked, breaking the silence, his voice shaky. Mia shook her head, deep in thought. He has a point, but we can't be scared off by threats. We need to know the truth, no matter what it costs. I didn't sign up for this, Sarah said, fighting back tears of frustration. I just wanted to help, not get tangled up in some petty feuds. Then don't, Mia replied, her gaze softening. But if you want to help, you have to commit. We can't turn back now. The fear in Sarah's stomach twisted again. Could they really handle what was yet to come? Were they strong enough? Okay, let's just focus on the information, Sarah said, trying to pull her thoughts together. What's next? Next is laying low until tomorrow, Mia said, her voice firm again. We regroup, study what I sent, and then we decide our course of action. With that, they turned back toward the road leading away from the bleachers, the uneasiness of their new reality pressing against them like a heavy cloak. As they walked, each of them lost in their own thoughts, Sarah realized how rapidly their lives were changing. The thrill of discovery was mingling with a terrifying uncertainty. The world around them buzzed with late afternoon energy, but all she could hear was the pulse of her racing heart and the echo of Kyle's warning: would they uncover the truth, or would it pull them into the darkness he hinted at? There was no turning back. But how far were they willing to go? The next morning, a crisp dawn broke over Maplewood, but Sarah felt the looming shadows of yesterday's revelations pressing against her. As she brewed coffee and prepared breakfast in a daze, her thoughts never strayed far from the unfolding truth that awaited her and Jake. They sat across from each other at the small kitchen table, silent and pensive. The usual warmth of shared meals felt overshadowed by uncertainty. Jake toyed with his coffee cup, glancing up often, as if searching for the right words. "Are you ready for today?" he finally asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart racing. "What if we uncover something that puts us all at risk?" "Mrs. Price, Kyle, everyone keeps hinting that things are worse than we think." Jake leaned closer, his determination igniting a spark within her. "We're not in this alone, remember? We have the support of our community now. And we can't let fear dictate our actions. If we take a step back, all those dreams we've fought for will vanish into shadows." With breakfast done, they grabbed their bags and stepped into the bright morning that promised warmth, but Sarah still felt a chill in her bones. They made their way to school, talking less about what might happen and more about their hope for genuine change. As they entered the bustling high school, the upbeat chatter enveloped them, but a thick tension still simmered beneath the surface. The other students breezed past like the world was normal, unaware of the urgent mission ahead. Sarah inhaled, gathering every ounce of courage, and headed toward the group of students gathered near the bleachers. Today was the day they would confront Mia and take the plunge into her web of secrets. Heart fluttering, she glanced at Jake, whose fierce expression reignited the fire in her gut. Together, they approached Mia, who stood chatting with a few of her friends, exuding confidence as always. "Hey, Mia." Jake called, and she turned to them, the smile faded slightly now, weighing the implications of what they might uncover. "Ready to dive deeper?" Mia asked, her voice a blend of challenge and curiosity. "Let us do it," Sarah asserted, her voice gaining strength. She could feel the warmth of determination burning within her. They found a secluded spot under the bleachers, a makeshift hideout where whispers could carry weight without prying ears. Mia pulled out her phone, scrolling through texts and documents. "Okay," she said, her voice serious. "If you want the truth, you have to understand what's at stake. This is a web of influence, and every name leads to someone with power." Jake leaned in. "Tell us what you've got. We're ready for anything." Mia began to unfold layers of connections, names of influential parents, hidden agendas from teachers, and how fear of repercussions held students hostage to silence. Each revelation made Sarah's stomach twist tighter. "This doesn't just affect awards. It can ruin futures," Mia said, her gaze fixated. Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Sarah saw Kyle, lurking near the fringes of their gathering, arms crossed, a smirk plastered across his face as he watched them. "Looks like the little heroes have their heads in the clouds," he sneered, a sinister edge to his tone. Sarah felt a rush of anger. "What do you want, Kyle?" She shot back, her voice painted with defiance. "Just enjoying the show. Playing with fire is risky business, don't you know? You guys think you can take on the elite? They'll crush you if you give them a reason," he taunted, the shadows of doubt woven into his words. "Let us worry about that," Jake replied, growing bold. "You don't scare us." "Yeah. Good luck with that," Kyle sneered and strolled away, leaving a trail of unease behind him. Mia met their eyes sharply. "He might be right about one thing," she said gravely. "You need to tread carefully. If they see you as a threat, things could get ugly, and I don't mean just social fallout." "Well, then let us make our intentions clear," Sarah said, heart pounding with fierce resolve. "If we're going to expose the truth, we have to do it. Right. We need allies, people who stand with us. Jake nodded, the fire reignited in his eyes. Let us organize a meeting. We can share what we know, gather support from those affected. The more we unite, the harder it will be for them to silence us. As they mapped out a plan, a sense of hope began to rise from the shadows. The thrill of possibility coursed through Sarah. They were becoming part of something real, something bigger than themselves. Later that day, Sarah and Jake stood before a growing crowd in the community center, a mix of familiar faces, friends, neighbors, families joined together by the common thread of striving for change. They shared their discoveries, the secrets of the scholarship system and how it betrayed the dreams of countless students. Each story unveiled a multitude of lost aspirations, heartaches, and sacrifices that resonated deeply. People began to nod, voices murmuring in agreement, the emotional weight of their struggles intertwining. We are not victims, Sarah proclaimed, her heart pounding. We have the power to stand together and demand transparency. It's time to build bridges instead of walls. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of unity washing over them. She could see Jake's smile reflected in the amber of the room's light, his spirit radiant. Together, they had taken the first step to claiming back their future. As the applause subsided, a deep resolve settled within her. They might be stepping into the unknown and confronting shadows, but together they would fight for their place in the light. Afterwards, the energy buzzed with excitement, ideas sparking chatter among groups. As Sarah and Jake huddled to discuss the next steps, relief flooded through her. It felt like a turning point, and the thrill of possibility brushed against fear, weaving a tapestry of hope between them. Tomorrow, we start painting our future, Jake said, his voice filled with optimism, and in that moment, Sarah knew this was the beginning of not just their fight, but of their transformation too. They wouldn't just settle for dreams, they would become architects of their own destiny, and as they stepped outside, the sunset cast a brilliant glow over Maplewood, illuminating the path ahead. Shadows may have lingered, but together, they would find the courage to shine through. If you've enjoyed this transformation, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel. Don't miss the next incredible stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this magic alive. And make sure to comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Share the hope, the fight, the unity. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Spread the word and uplift those around you.